The New Statesman, always an entertaining magazine, has put out an article about Nigel Farage, and it presents a critical analysis of his recent actions and positions, particularly in the context of the political unrest and rioting associated with the anti-immigration sentiments. And the article suggests that Farage is in a precarious position, torn between condemning the rioters, which would alienate a significant portion of his base, and supporting them, which would undermine his broader political appeal. And this dilemma, the article argues, provides an opportunity for the Conservative Party to draw a clearer distinction between itself and Reform UK by highlighting Farage's extremism and irresponsibility, or his perceived extremism and irresponsibility. The article criticises Farage for his hasty and erroneous response to the tragic events in Southport, where he implied that the violence was perpetuated by a recently arrived Muslim migrant and was depending on Andrew Tate, another prejudiced and bigoted individual. This rush to judgment, based on an unverified internet rumour, underscores a broader pattern of behaviour where Farage prioritises populist rhetoric over responsible leadership. And this approach not only risks inflaming tensions but also undermines his credibility as a political leader and the leader of a party. The article suggests that Farage's willingness to propagate such claims, even when baseless, reveals his lack of discernment, his lack of understanding, his inability to put things into proper perspective. It's an article, of course, by David Gauke, so it's got there's an angle there. And the way in which Farage likes to engage in fear-mongering. It's also a political opportunity for the Conservatives. The article argues that Farage's missteps have created a strategic opening for the Conservative Party, and by taking a firmer stance against violence and distancing itself from Farage's rhetoric, the Conservative Party, as it reforms and as it finds its new leadership, can appeal to moderate voters who are disillusioned with both Labour and Reform. So another reason for the Conservative Party to find a moderate leader rather than a Kemi Badenoch or a Priti Patel or a Suella Braverman, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick ripoff. It needs to abandon all that rubbish and find a moderate leadership to draw a distinction between Farage and the Conservatives. The article commends figures like Mel Stride and James Cleverly, but Mel Stride was there first for confronting Farage, but notes that others within the party are more hesitant because of concerns about alienating the party's right-wing bias, that base. Gauke goes on to situate the current problem within the broader historical context, drawing parallels between the Conservative response to past episodes of unrest like the miners' strike and the current riots. It suggests that the Conservative instinct to prioritise law and order and to resist mob rule remains a potent force within the party. However, it implies that there's tension between this traditional Conservative stance and the populist impulses represented by Farage and his supporters. The risk for the Conservative Party is that by failing to decisively distance itself from these impulses, it loses its identity as a party of responsible governance. Farage's populism, it exemplifies the tension between that sort of populist movement and appealing to his base and maintaining a broader political legitimacy, and his reliance on inflammatory rhetoric, which may energize a segment of voters, also limits his ability to appeal to any form of centre. The dynamic is not unique to the UK, but is observed in populist movements globally. Like for example, in Hungary, where the roads are decaying in front of your car tyres, but Hungary's sort of pseudo-nationalist rhetoric is stumped out. Leaders often struggle to balance radical elements within their base and the need for broader electoral appeal and to take responsibility for the country as a whole. The Conservative Party's hesitation in confronting Farage reflects a broader challenge for mainstream Conservative parties in Europe and beyond. As populist movements gain control, traditional Conservative parties face the difficult task of appealing to populist-leaning voters without abandoning their core principles or alienating moderate voters. Certainly since Brexit, I think the Conservative Party has alienated the moderate core, and this article suggests that the Conservative Party's current leadership contest will be a critical moment in determining whether the party navigates this challenge, whether the party survives. The New Statesman article offers a pointed critique of Farage's recent actions and positions, while also highlighting the strategic opportunities and risks that face the Conservative Party in opposition, and pretty well explain why the Conservative Party is in opposition. What brought about that that situation? The rush to put out a statement, says Gauke, by Farage, was irresponsible, but also, I think, irresistible. He says, as it happens, it was a baseless claim to which his only defence was that he was a fool, not a knave, essentially arguing that if Andrew Tate had claimed it was the case, it must be true. He says, a shocking, if not entirely surprising, misjudgment. But it is that level of misjudgment that defines Farage. Because in the end, Farage, like Liz Truss, like so many other people on the far right, is lazy. He doesn't do the groundwork. He doesn't put in the effort. He doesn't read his papers. He relies on a summary and a cursory glance. That's enough. And then he takes control. He takes control without thinking. That is not leadership. That is blind stupidity.